Yeah, so we have a group of four somewhat recent ENVD grads from a range of different professions, but they all graduated from design studies at ENVD, and they're going to be running through their capstone projects individually, and then what they're doing right now professionally and what that world looks like.
We are very honored. It's so great to see all of them. So we are arranging the last 4 years of design studies, which of course now is EPOD. But design studies really was the foundation of everything that you guys are now learning in environmental product design, except for that was all kind of condensed within the final year of their study. So they've done some design thinking. They've done a lot of user-based projects, and the four that we have with us today really are unified by their embracing of technology in the betterment of design. And we are really fortunate to have with us today Juliana Barton, who is with us she graduated in 2017. The lead designer, obviously you can see, at Studio Giancarlo Val. And Jesse Koenig, a graduate from 2018 in the design studies program. Also built a playground with me during the spring of 2017. So Jesse, it's awesome to have you with us. He is now the digital brand manager at EcoVessel and the lead graphic designer here in Boulder. Coming to us from Mexico City, we have Eduardo Samayoa. Eduardo graduated in 2018 and has opened his own agency and will tell us more about his journey there as we learn more about him from himself. And then finally, we have Cody Thurston, who graduated in 2019 with a design studies degree and is now working as an associate designer for Deckers Brands, working on shoe design and visualization. And again, the thing that all four of these have in common, you're going to see from their capstone projects. So this is kind of my departure point with a lot of you, although I've watched you fervently on LinkedIn to see what you've been doing. I just wanted to give our other students here in EPOD just a glimpse into the kind of work that you were doing while you were a student here, and then maybe there will be some threads that link to your professional career. So starting with Juliana. Juliana did her honors thesis in a project called Sentience. And it was one of the most forward-thinking and interesting honors theses that we've seen here in a long time, where she was looking at Arduinos and sensor-based Arduinos as a way to collect data from space, and then be able to turn that data into real-time printed, 3D printed objects that could represent space, that could look at a kind of as a diagram of what happened. They recorded audio levels. Trying to think what else they recorded, Juliana. But it was this. Was it audio only, or was it there was more to it?
Yeah, it was audio based.
Yeah. And so here you're seeing some of the outputs from the visualization of the sound waves. I believe this one represents the ENVD sync space. And then we have some of the other spaces, studio spaces within ENVD. And then she turned her honors thesis as a design studies major into this beautifully bound, really interesting publication that really set a standard for the honors theses going forward as to their graphic component. So thank you for being with us, Juliana. Next up, Jesse Koenig. So Jesse did, as part of our playground project, we did a lot of outreach with the community, and we had these surveys that we wanted to give them. And from that experience, I think Jesse had a reaction of, it seemed like kind of a not as entertaining experience as it could be, or you're asking for data from people, but you're not giving them a lot in return. So this project was called Intake, and Jesse was able to code a survey that basically took your input and turned it into a beautiful graphical display. that gave you a bit of a reward for the input that you gave it for the survey. So awesome to have Jesse with us. Next up, let's take a look at Eduardo's project. And somewhat similar to Juliana's project, Eduardo created that beautiful little puck up there, which I wish I had a photo of. Eduardo, you have to send that to me. This is a rhino model of it, but it was this very minimalist kind of puck that, similar to Juliana's project, it was embedded with a whole series of sensors, and the goal of Eduardo's project was to create a visualization of spaces. Here you can see a 3D printed library, retail, and restaurant where the thickness of the line represents sound, and then I think in the other direction there is temperature. And so he was getting these visualizations in 3D out of this sensor-based input. That was one project. Another independent study that he did with me was a set of, I don't know if we would call them amplifiers or speakers. But the idea was you would put your phone or your device in there, and it helped amplify the sound from your phone device. But the forms that these took on were entirely related to the desired acoustics from the sound. So the form was really a result of the acoustic qualities you were trying to enhance. So there's the ported, the sealed, and the horn, which were specific for different types of music. So thank you for being with us, Eduardo, and giving us a glimpse into your ENVD work. And then finally, Cody. Cody did a lot of interesting projects while he was in environmental design. Some of them were, all of them were based around technology and fabrication methods and sensory inputs. And Jumble was the result of an up and down and back and forth and between projects that he collaborated on with Dan Rubenstein. And the result was a series of magnetic planter pods that could be arranged in really playful ways and could be mounted on the wall, could be suctioned to windows. So, and all of the work that Cody has done has had a really forward-thinking aesthetic and rationale for being. So, Cody, thank you again for being with us. So that's just a brief glimpse into where they were when they were here in environmental design. In some cases that was 4 years ago, some cases that was 1. But now I'm going to turn it over to Juliana to just talk about your journey post-environmental design and tell us how your professional life has progressed since then. Thank you guys for doing this.
Thanks, Jeremy, and thanks for having me. It's pretty awesome. One of the positives out of all this is that, now we're so familiar with Zoom that, we can all participate in things like this, even when we live in different states. So I'm grateful for that, and thanks for having me. So yeah, this is sort of a hodgepodge of my work over the past 4 years. In the center here, it kind of started with, it was actually an independent study that continued on after graduation with Marcel and a group of 7 or 8 of us that did this project for the Boulder Public Library that was kind of like exhibition design mixed with digifab. And that was sort of a first look into working for a real client and a real world kind of project with a set budget and timeline. And that sort of jump started my post ENVD career in some ways. And then after graduation and completing this project the summer of 2017, I moved to New York and I started interning for a small architecture firm called Nile, who was actually founded by an ENVD graduate that had been in ENVD, I think 5 or 8 years before me. And that was sort of a nice introduction into New York City and just sort of getting my feet and being able to connect with a network of ENVD grads. I didn't really know many people in New York City, and it can be quite an intense situation to enter into. Like I probably applied to almost 200 jobs and maybe heard back from 2, which is just to say that there's a lot of talented people. And sort of once I got my feet on the ground, I found it a lot easier to break into the network of design professionals in the city. But that was sort of a very conceptual architecture studio that was sort of very different from anything ENVD, but it was sort of a good first entry to the city. I sort of freelanced a bit and started on my own little studio called JB Goods, which was a line of jewelry and home goods that I designed and fabricated myself, and then also did all of sort of the branding and the art direction for the lookbooks. And that was sort of an online store that I also did a couple fairs and markets around like San Francisco and Brooklyn, and that was sort of an interesting little venture while I was sort of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I think in that time, it was super helpful to have the background of ENVD that is so diverse, because I could sort of hone those skills to be lucrative in a time when I was trying to figure out my next move. I think ENVD prepares you well to market yourself in a lot of different ways, which in a city like New York, there's times where you kind of just have to take work, and you can be very creative. And anyway, and then next I moved on to a studio called Anna Carlin Studio, and Anna Carlin has her own collection of furniture, lighting, and jewelry, and that's sort of how I first got introduced to her, because I was interested in possibly pursuing more of a product design career. But I actually ended up working for her more on interiors, which was sort of my first intro into high-end residential projects. And in New York, a lot of the firms here are very bespoke. So every element of the projects is designed down to every piece of furniture and custom fabric. So I worked on a series of 10 apartments with her that were for a developer. So a lot of them were like custom pieces that I was able to develop and work with local vendors and fabricators to produce, from design development all the way to the installation, and then helping style the photo shoots. So I was working with her for about a year, and then I moved to Studio Giancarlo Valle, which is where I'm currently at and have been at for the past year. And he's trained as an architect, but works primarily in high-end residential projects. And my first project with him was a small retail boutique for the brand Altuzarra, which is a fashion brand. And so it was a bit of, again, that installation exhibition kind of angle, but with very bespoke pieces. So like, this was a display that, we started out with a Rhino file, and then I saw it through to the final installation. And right now I'm working on a series of residences in the city, one in California, one in Mexico City, and a couple other houses across the US that are sort of all in the spirit of this like very bespoke interior world. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at and what I'm doing right now. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, cool. So my name's Jesse Koenig. I graduated in 2018, like Jeremy had said. I had the joy of having Jeremy for basically 2 years, building the playgrounds and also doing my capstone project. Jeremy really helped me kind of develop my love for graphic design, and it has kind of evolved throughout the past, 2 years since I've been graduated now. So I was lucky enough to get an internship while I was in school for a company in Boulder called EcoVessel that makes insulated water bottles. And I got hired on as a graphic assistant, and I kind of just burgeoned from there. When I was in ENVD, I really wanted to hone my graphic skills. And I was also very interested in digital graphics, especially with JavaScript coding as well. So to kind of dive a little bit further into my capstone project a little bit, I just, based on our surveys that we had done with the Kendall Playscape and the community members there, we just didn't get very many responses. And I wanted to create some incentive to try to get more people to actually respond to these surveys. So I wanted to create a practical survey system where we would still gather real world data, but it would also create a visual art piece at the same time. And it could be graphical, and each entry ended up being its own little animated graphic there. And it took a lot of work, as Jeremy knows. It took a lot of going back and forth with my mentor at the time, who was Joel Swanson. If any of you are in TAM, you might have had Joel Swanson before. He's the man. And he helped me out a lot with it. But after that, I knew that I really wanted to focus my time in graphic design and more on the product design of things. So just after I graduated from college, they hired me on full time under a creative director at EcoVessel. And I worked under the creative director for about a year, and then the creative director exited. So I just took over the lead graphic position. Some of the projects that you can see here up on the top, this is actually a spin-off line that we did for EcoVessel for Target. And it's called Edge by EcoVessel, and it was going to go into all 322 stores across the country. So we had to design a new logo for it. We had to redesign all of the packaging design. So that packaging design file that you see on the wrap or on the right is a wrap that can be seen on the left. We got to work with a lot of interesting creative foiling and kind of adding our Boulder stamp to it as well, and kind of trying to model the flat irons in more of a polypop way. Along with that, I do a lot of hand-drawn illustrations with my handy dandy iPad Pro over here. So a lot of what you can see on here right now are things that I've done with an iPad Pro. At EcoVessel, we also have a full line of kids' water bottles. So I get to go in and I get to hand draw all of the graphics for it, which is one of my favorite parts of the job. And some of our bottles have been in REI and in Sprouts and in several other stores. So I got to really see some of my designs, get seen by a large audience there. Along with taking over graphics and doing that kind of stuff, I also had to learn a lot about digital marketing, which has never really been my forte. So figuring out how to advertise through Facebook ads and Google advertisements, and also how to code the website to optimize it as well, and optimizing for SEO, which isn't the most fun part of my job, but it was definitely a resume bullet that I had acquired. And I had several conferences that I went to learn more about it, about the conceptualization of it, and more of the actual implementation of it as well. So that kind of scopes out what I've been doing at EcoVessel, and I've been there for about 3 years now, and I enjoy it so much. I get to do graphic design for a living. I get to do packaging design, and I even get input into product design and picking colors and conceptualizing out new products. So be on the lookout for more products coming from us. But finally, to wrap up, that Rivertown Skateboards logo there was also a project that I did with a good friend of mine. I'm from Salida, Colorado, which is a super small town. But one of my best friends growing up ended up becoming a professional skateboarder. And he wanted to create a skateboard brand on the side. So while I was in ENVD and Jeremy got to see kind of the evolution of this, we designed a line of skateboards, and I got to do all the branding and all the graphics for that. And actually behind my head, you can see a skateboard hanging up behind me. We've done, I think, 5 boards now, and We're a little smaller still, but you know, we just kind of like to sell to our team and to like people that we're close to. But it's more of kind of just like an, you know, off the cuff when I have time hobby right now. But other than that, I do a lot of graphic design and I love to draw in my free time. And I'm really excited to hear that the design studies program is burgeoning into this new program. And I'm excited to see all the future work that you guys put out. And yeah, that should about do it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so guys, thank you for being here. And thank you, Jeremy, for inviting us. So well, after I graduated CU, I basically moved to San Francisco following a job that I found there for Niteo design. And there I had the privilege to be consulting design in lighting, architecture, conceptual, and interiors for Google, Uber, Pinterest, Slack. There's not a lot they let me show you about that because they literally took away all my hard drive with that because of their public company, so they can't let me show you. But if I share screen, I have some stuff. So yeah, this was for Google. This is actually one of the biggest land footprints in California. It's 800,000 square feet. And I got to work with Heatherwick Studio, which is super successful in London. And we basically did the whole concept for wayfinding and using lighting and architecture to navigate through space. These are renderings and it's being built right now on Mountain View. So you'll see it in the future. And of course, Google had to make a building shape of a J. So just to flex that off, Google. But it was really cool. We were working with super talented people and it really got me thinking about like conceptual branding and conceptualing companies, how they work and how they design. So like how the color of the button in the elevator is pre-designed in every Google building. So how you take a simple concept and put it all through the company and how you write emails and everything. So that was super interesting to do. And then this is another project, the Slack headquarters in downtown San Francisco. I work on some of the conceptual stuff. This was really cool because it was six stories and each story of the building had a different environment. So this was under a lava cave and we used a lot of lighting manufacturers and different concepts to kind of work all these scenes. This was obviously in like a forest in North Pacific, like Washington, Seattle kind of thing. This was walking through a canopy. We got to design this whole things and it was actually super fun. And the fun thing about working with tech companies is almost always you have an unlimited budget, which is amazing. These are the elevator floors as soon as you come in, and you can see here, this is one of the top floors when you get to the clouds. So this has like a couple of sheets of cloth to like kind of make that happen with the clouds. And yeah, this is more of the tree stuff that we're going on and a lot of cool, really cool places to work in for sure. These are all CNC lighting things that we worked on with a team. And yeah, and so after that, I was working in San Francisco and consulting for all these super cool companies doing all these conceptual projects. I decided to move back a little closer to my home. I am from El Salvador, but I moved to Mexico City because it's a very up and coming design place to be. There's a very entrepreneurial part to it, and I was in love with tech and concepts and that kind of stuff. So I moved last year, and I was finishing consulting for this company that I just showed you, and I started my own agency called Dracula Studio, and Dracula because our cat is called Dracula, and so that's why we call it like that. And right now we started it in like around December, January, and we had this super good luck of getting COVID 3 months after we got it officially started with 2 other founders. And we do design consulting and innovation consulting for a lot of companies here in Mexico and internationally. And we follow a very strict methodology that is very inspired by Jeremy, actually, because he showed me the book, The Design of Everyday Things. So in our company, we attack problems in a 4-step methodology, combining a couple of methodologies that we use, like Six Sigma, Lean Startup, Human-Centered Design, and Design Thinking. So I'm just going to run through these. Basically, you discover, analyze, create, and execute. And so for every client we have, we basically run through these and see how we can create value to their company. How can we design, if it's a manufacturing process, if it's an e-commerce or some type of a commerce line that we can help them, or target a new business, is a new consumer. So we basically just follow this literally step by step, and everybody knows here that we have to follow this all the way through. Obviously, it fluctuates depending on the project, but we follow this basically pretty strictly here to come up with solutions. And yeah, and so with that, we've done projects with branding, we've done projects for e-commerce consulting, we've done projects for software development in Mexico and Latin America. And yeah, we're growing, and yeah, it's been super exciting, super scary to put your own company, but super fun. And we're 7 full-time now, so it's been really fun.
Well, hey everyone, Cody Thurston. I'm from Eagle, Colorado. As far as my journey from ENVD, it's a little bit shorter maybe than some of the others, as I've only been graduated a year. These days, I now work as a 3D designer for Deckers Brands. They're the parent company that owns several footwear brands. They own UGG, Teva, Sanuk, Hoka, Koolaburra. Sometimes it's hard to keep track of them, but anyway, in my time at ENVD, I would say that, like maybe Jeremy said, my projects were definitely technology and manufacturing focused. I was always sort of trying to find this connection between the computer and how we can help aiding in manufacturing, sort of using the computer. I can take over actually and share some of this stuff. Oh. So can you guys see that? I believe so. Yeah, so you can see, like, when I was in ENVD, I was really focused on like CNCing things and
You can't see your screen.
Oh, thank you. Oh, geez.
Yeah, there we go.
Cool. In ENVD, like I said, I was kind of focused on this technology and fabricating with machines kind of thing. So I was CNCing big Christmas trees and 3D printing my lamps. And then actually in the summer of my junior year, I got an internship with Deckers. And with them, I was sort of, building, prototyping shoes, animating, sort of doing visualizations of shoes. And then I kind of actually, we were doing some more conceptual work here during my internship with lattices and trying to build concept sole designs and things like that. These days, especially with COVID, it's definitely like taken a step back away from more of the fun conceptual stuff, and it's really kind of narrowed itself down into being manufacturing and sort of revenue based, which is a little bit different than ENVD kind of trains you to be ready for. It's like all sort of money driven, but that's okay. So, but it's also, I kind of put this together to kind of show you that there's like several skills that they're teaching you guys that are like directly applicable to different parts of the job. So for instance, here we go, like these days, my job starts out with receiving one of these Illustrator documents from a designer. So say, for instance, this boot that Teva was designing, they'll provide this Illustrator document sort of labeled with the different, this is what we call a material map. Then you're sort of communicating with the factory at this point, and you get your hands on what's called a last. It's kind of like that wooden thing. If you imagine in a movie, you see like a cobbler, that's like a wooden last that they build a shoe around. So we work with the factories to then get a 3D model of the last that they're using in the factory. And then we're warping and sort of deforming this designer's sketch to fit onto the last. And this is like kind of an arbitrary process, kind of upsets some designers when you start to mess with their stuff, but it's really sort of essential to like fit it to the form that it's going to be manufactured around. And at that point, we kind of start drawing lines in 3D. We use a program called Romans CAD, which is a shoe-specific footwear design program. So we'll draw like the style lines and model the laces. And at this point, again, you can see the soles in there. So the factories have provided us the sole and the last, and we're sort of modeling this upper. We're also communicating with the suppliers and different factories to get material swatches. So we get a material swatch, and it's like essentially like a little square of fabric, and they'll ship that to us, and we process that into a 3D material so that we can apply that to the 3D object to sort of help the designers visualize that. So yeah, like you can see, after we get all of our materials together and we model it, we sort of apply it all together. And first we do like a grayscale version. This is to kind of prep it to get ready for color application. So at that point now, like traditionally in the footwear industry, you're just sending that original Illustrator sketch off to China, and they're sending back a sample, and then there's a whole series of back and forths. It takes up a lot of time, costs a lot of money, is really not that good on the environment. So like with these sort of endeavors we're doing, we're trying to do color ups, all virtual sampling, you know, have your retailers carry around these virtual samples to sell to REI or to Nordstrom or whatever brand you're trying to get your shoe into. At that point, when you finish the 3D model, you're also able to like use that 3D model to communicate complex things to the factory. So like right now you get a sample and something is incorrect on it. You're taking a photo with your iPhone and you're annotating on Photoshop and sending a JPEG back to the factory. And it's really not that efficient. It, you know, causes a lot of miscommunication. So with these 3D models, we can be really specific. This is how we want a waterproof liner to be built. This is the layers we need. We can also send them like essentially laser cut lines on the model and how to produce exactly what we want. Becomes effective for things like pre-costing and bill of materials and things like that as well. And yeah, and then the last part, the more fun aspect of my job, is that we are trying to figure out how to leverage these 3D models for other applications besides just manufacturing. So right now, this kind of serves as working with the innovation team and working with some of the brands to work on concept designs. We can do all sorts of fun things, animation with it. We plug them into VR. We work with Snapchat and work on animated filters and all kinds of things, trying to put them in Fortnite and your character's shoes and things like that. So, and again, you can see there's just some fun ones. It's these days, whenever I get to touch grasshopper and things like that and apply them to our models, it's really the highlight of my day. So I wanted to throw these in here more so than the laser cut lines that aren't this fun. But yeah. And again, like I said, back to maybe my journey. So I just graduated last year and I got that internship, which was really my main foot in the door. They liked what I saw, what happened at the internship. And I actually only got the internship because I met someone at a Christmas party and convinced them to take a hold of my resume. So just keep your eyes open for any opportunity. And if you can get an internship and if you enjoy the internship, definitely give it your best foot forward and hopefully they'll hire you on. But that's about all I have.